So how are you? My name is Sparky, or Ray Corcoran. I'm a youth worker in Poppintree Youth Project. We do a lot of work. We have done a lot of work in the past with Axis. Um, I was around when Axis began. I was one of the people who kind of tried to get artists to come out to Axis. Um, I'm not. I live in Ballymun. I live in Poppintree. I So I live and work in the area, but I'm not from Ballymun originally. I'm from Coolock originally. I was born and reared in Coolock, and there's no big artistry in my family, but a huge interest in art, a huge interest in music. Growing up as a kid, I kind of was lucky enough to be in the 80s, where all that music came out, like when the Bunnymen, the Smiths, and the first gig I ever went to was the Clash, and I
Wow.
was a punk rocker. I went to. I was lucky. I didn't get to go to the local CBS through an argument that my father had. My father is a trade unionist, and he had an argument with the school, and I never got into the secondary school, and I was devastated, But I went to Plunkett's then up in Whitehall. My nanny lived in Whitehall, and it was kind of my second home. You know the way years ago you're kind of reared between your nannies or your grannies and at home. So I was a lot of the time up in Yellow Road, and then I went to Plunkett School on the Swords Road. And so you can imagine Plunkett School had 7 first-year classes full of 32 lads, right? And then 7 second-year classes, 7 third-year classes, and then they had what we now call transition year, but it was a different thing. It was called CDEP or something like that, which was kind of a city and guilds course, and then they had fifth and sixth year, and they were full as well. And then they were one of the schools that did the repeat the leaving. So that school was full of people, and it was from Coolock, Ballymun, Whitehall, Broadstone, Marino, Cabra, Finglas, everywhere, town. So my whole spectrum was just widened when I went to that school. When I went into that school, I immediately started hanging around with this guy called Braille, and he was a punk, and we became best mates. And I just get into music. The first album I bought was a Sex Pistols album, and I just got into music, and I got into the clothes, and I got into the whole DIY end of things, And I was lucky enough to grow up. There was nothing around. We didn't have anything, so any fun that we made ourselves, And then I had jobs, delivering newspapers. Now, when I was in primary, I did a lot of delivering newspapers and stuff like that, and I did a bit of that when I was in first year. But then I got a job in Johnson Union O'Brien, and we were on the vans, and we were bread boys, and it was like we were rock stars, When you were the bread boy in Johnson Union O'Brien, you were in an electric van, probably going about 15 miles an hour, and people were like, you were a rock star. It was like the conductor on the bus was like a rock star, because he floated around the bus, different times, like, So, um, so I was lucky enough to get out into the world. And my sister went out with a guy called Brian Clark, and he was a great guy. He ran a stall in the Halfpenny Market, which was the market that kind of followed on from the Dandelion Market. And so they ran a stall in there, and they sold bootleg tapes and secondhand records and all kinds of stuff. Like, so I just started a job in there, and it was amazing. I actually met Echo and the Bunnymen in there. I sold Will Sargent a Sid Barrett cassette tape, right? And I said to him, "Who's Sid Barrett?" And he said, "Wash your mouth out with soap." And I met him years later, and I said it to him, and he goes, "Yeah, that's something like I would have said, And so I had an amazing time. There was bands, Aiken Drum, which then the singer from Aiken Drum was in Sack. Like, so all those bands. There was a band called the Cathedral. There was the Golden Horde. All them bands all played on a stage made out of plastic milk crates and bits of wood. Like, you know what I mean? And it was a great time. It was an amazing time. And then there was the Halfpenny, or not the Halfpenny. There was the Abbey Mall, with
Yeah.
all the different food that was in there, the Poor Mouth Cafe, and Googie, who was in the Virgin Prunes. He had like a studio upstairs in there, and he was always around. And great times. We were part of the scene. I was, and it was just very, very natural. And then my dad had a car. My dad had a really, really good car. My dad had a really good job. You know, he was in the union, and a really good job. And his car broke, and he had bought me a car because I was always messing around with cars, and I was always taking his car, and I was in and out of the driveway and all that. So he bought me this banger of a car, and him and his mate switched all the wires around on it so that I wouldn't be able to drive it, you know. But within 20 minutes, I had it. Oh yeah, that goes there, that goes there, and I was driving this car. But I was the only one that could start it, you know. And so his car wouldn't start. Well, his car broke down in Clare, and it was abandoned down in Clare. And he asked me could he insure my car, and I said yeah, take it because he had given it to me, you know. But the brilliant thing is that it would never start for him, right? So I'd be in school at like 12 o'clock in the day, and I get, you know, Ray Corcoran go to the secretary's office, and I go in and say, your dad can't start the car and he has to drive to Galway or something, like, you know. There was a strike, and I'd have to go in and start the car, and he'd take me, you know, go back to school, and I go, yeah. But I go to the Halfpenny Market, and we just, great times, you know what I mean? Just great times, like, you know, and then...
Can we tell us, when you say the punk thing, like, did you have the full regalia, like, were you...
I had hair, so I kind of would have been, like, my hair would have grown long, right, when I was in first year. And I remember Braille saying to me, if you let me spike your hair up, it'd look great, you know. So when he spiked my hair up, it was that height. So I was this insecure kid, and he spiked my hair up, and he gave me this jacket that said on the back of it, a line of a crass song. So what if the master walked in the water? Don't see him trying to stop the slaughter. And it was written in Tipex in the back of his coat. And we had found it actually on the ground. We found it somewhere outside a gig, and it was in a big load of slime on the ground. And I brought it home and washed it in the washing machine, you know. And so I had that jacket, a pair of Doc Marten boots, jeans that I bleached myself, you know, with stripy, you know, where you tie-dye things.
Yeah.
And everything was DIY, you know what I mean? So I went to gigs like dressed like that, and people would stand back, you know. And I was just this happy-go-lucky kid, you know, that loved being around people. But I looked really, really wild, you know what I mean? And I had cousins who were punks, and, you know, we were like, and then what happened was all my mates got into ska, and I loved ska. And then they get into reggae, and I loved reggae. And then, so that guy, Brian Clark, my sister's fella, he was into everything. He was into Pink Floyd, he was into everything, like, you know. And I just had this introduction to music, and he would have bought me Echo and the Bunnymen, and he brought me to the Albert Hall in London when I was only a kid. We went to see the Waterboys, John Martin, Echo and the Bunnymen, The Cure. Like, you can imagine, like, you know what I mean? You know, I went on a train. We went on a boat on a train to London. Went to see these bands. Just an amazing time, like, you know what I mean? So yeah, I was big into the music, and then I kind of got into the Smiths then, and we were one of the people who went to see the Smiths up in Dundalk. It was a famous gig where they were playing a night in Belfast, a night in Dublin, and then in between there was Dundalk. So they played in the Fairdale Hotel or something like that, and it was just mad because people were paying to get in just for the late drink. And it could have been Foster and Allen playing. They didn't care, like, you know what I mean? There was about 100 of us up the front watching this band, you know. And we were like this much away from them, and it was one of them amazing gigs, like, you know. So just great times, you know, just a very, very different Ireland, like just coming out of that whole, you know, Catholicism thing, and then into a fairer country, like, you know what I mean, and into, you know, I mean, you would have remembered, like, you know, I mean, you couldn't put a play on in Dublin that had any, you know, that it was anything to, you know, if there was anything controversial in it, like, you know, you couldn't put it on, you know. It was like the Project Art Centre was a den of iniquity or something, like, you know, and, you know, it was just different times, you know.
I think you're right there. I mean, I remember those times. We talk about the music scene, particularly. There was a kind of explosion over a 10-year period in kind of Dublin from like 1980 or so to kind of the early kind of 90s, when all these bands were just forming and playing and gigging, and it was in the height of a major like recession, you know, in a recession that no one lost anything because no one fucking had anything at all. It was just like nothing. But yet beyond that, there was kind of tribes of young people started to emerge into really seriously into their music, and I think that stayed with kind of that generation up to now. I mean, like, from knowing you, Sparky, I mean, music plays a huge part in your life.
Yeah, yeah. And you see, what happened to me then was, there was a couple of things happened. One was, so the 80s in Dublin was kind of rough, and we would have been in big group and up in Coolock and that. And then I went into a youth club one night to give a fella a box, right? And I don't know why, because I didn't want to hit anybody, but there was a few of us went down, and we went into this youth club, and I had an experience. I went to the door of this place, and I went, "What's this? This is amazing." And we went back down the next day, and this is where the push bike thing comes in. Like, they were fixing push bikes, and we used to fix everything. Like, back then, yeah, if you had a bike and it had two wheels and a chain and a set of handlebars, you were lucky. Like, you know what I mean? It was just like, and you know, we would have bought bikes for £2. Like, you know what I mean? I was like, yeah, he's selling a bike, and it was, you know, or if you found a bike, or like I actually found a bike in a skip one time, and it was just like the best thing ever, you know. And so what happened was, they used to have a BMX club down there, and they did motorbikes and stuff like that. But I just went down, and we helped. You know, we got stuck in, and then I went looking for one of the leaders one night, and they were saying, "No, he's in Ballymun," and I was like, "What's he doing in Ballymun?" And I think my granny had died actually, and I was kind of upset, and I wanted to see him. So I just cycled up to Ballymun, and I'd been in Ballymun a couple of times when I was a kid, but I'd never kind of been. But he was in St. Joseph's Hall, and I went up, and he was like, "You should help out here, like, you know, you should help these. You'd be a great fella with these guys," because and I did. I just start helping. I was only 15. We got a flattened ball chorus, and we used to go up every Saturday. It was completely wrecked, and we used to just fix it up from nothing, you know, from discarded things we found, from doors we'd make shelves, and from, you know, it was brilliant, you know. And we had I was only like 2 years older than these kids, like, you know what I mean, and I was like the leader, you know, in the club, and I had the keys to the door. But we were just responsible, and I used to cycle up and down from Coolock, and it was great. And all that time I was, you know, I was still going to gigs, and I was still, you know, involved in music. I was listening to bands, and it's a great time, like, you know. And then the whole Ballymun thing happened, you know, the whole, you know, there was money coming in, and I was working in a factory, and I wanted to be a youth worker, and I got on a CE scheme or something like that. And it wasn't called a CE; it was called Teamwork Scheme, right?
Yeah.
So we arrived into the teamwork. So this kind of stuff has happened to me all my life. So I arrived into the teamwork scheme, and I think I was getting £60 a week or something, like, you know. And when we arrived in that morning, the teamwork supervisor never showed, right? And the nun was ringing saying, "Where are you?" And they were like, "Oh, no, I'm not taking that job." So I got the job, and it was just put upon me, like, you know, "Oh, well, you're the team leader now." So I got £96 a week. And it was great, you know what I mean? It was at the time that was like fair enough, like, you know. And so I was happy. I was happy out. We were running a youth centre in a youth club for really, really at-risk young people, you know. And at that time, it was hardcore. Like, I mean, there was families in really, really dire need. There was a lot of addiction. The heroin thing had exploded in Ballymun, and there was a lot of hidden poverty. There were a lot of people who were just hidden away. They had emptied all the Dimptons and all those old mental hospitals into Ballymun, and just left those people there. Like, I mean, so it was crazy. It was a mad time, you know. So, but I started hanging around with a group of people who were trying to develop youth. There had been a youth project in the area called the Youth Web that had closed down. So that money was there, and CDYSB the City of Dublin Youth Service Board were trying to develop a youth service in the area, and I became part of that then, and I worked in that youth service for a while, and then I kind of went off and did a few other things and came back, and, you know, so I'm always in and out of youth work in Ballymun. And but then I was also part of youth arts. Like, I mean, I remember going into a protest one time in town, and I met Simeon and the boys, you know, who were playing samba, and myself and Dean Scurry, who were joined at the hip at the time, you know, and we went in, and there was a protest, and we turned up at the samba band the next night, and I'm sure they were looking at us going, "Oh no, who it is," you know. And then we just got stuck in, and then we had access to minibuses and things like that, and we just worked together in a real community, in a real collective kind of way, with cafe and all those things, like, you know what I mean. And we got involved in the samba, still involved in the samba. So I would have been connected with all the art stuff, and then when I worked in Bradog in town, there was a big connection there with the Paddy's Day Parade. I worked in Priorswood and I had big connection with the Paddy's Day Parade. You know, I would have been able to apply for grants. That was one of my skills. I could apply, here's a grant, match that with that, and get plenty of money to do really, really deadly things with kids that had never, ever been. Like, you're saying to kids, you're going to be walking in the middle of the Paddy's Day Parade. They're like, no, we're not. And you're saying, no, you are. And you're going to be playing a drum. And they were like, wow. And then we go to, at the end of the parade, you get bookings for Ballina. And the next week, you'd be in a minibus driving to Ballina. I've never been in Ballina in my life. And next thing there, you're playing at a big parade. And you had these kids from Coolock and Ballymun, different places that were playing in parades. And it's amazing. It was a great, and those young people are now parents coming back to me now saying, that was the best time of our life. That was the time, that was the big change in our life. Like, you know what I mean? And a lot of youth work, when you do youth work, they're always asking you for, performance indicators and all that. And you can't say to them, ask me in 20 years' time, because that's when you get the performance indicator. That's when you get the young men and women coming back and saying, that was the best time of my life,
And Sparky, tell us about a couple of things there. What is it, or what was it about that at that very young age that you kind of felt, geez, I like kind of connecting with these young people? What was it?
So what it was, so I told you, my dad is a union man, and he has a huge personality, and he would be very, I would have picked up that pair. He's like the go-to man in his family, like that. He's the fixer, and I kind of took that on board. But my ma's family would be very compassionate people, like, and they would have been very church people. My uncle was a priest in Mexico, and he would have been that kind of a person. So I would have picked up that in the family, that I was this kind of compassionate person, but also fighting for the rights of people. So I would have kind of it just would have been a very, very natural thing. Like, you know what I mean? I would have turned up in Balcurris, like how I got the name Sparky was, right? I turned up in Balcurris with a lawnmower, and I was going to make this go-kart. But the only thing I knew about the lawnmower was if you held the spark plug lead and pulled the crank, you got a shock off it. So one of the kids got a shock off the lead, and he called me Spark Plug. And then next week it was called Sparky, you know what I mean? But it was just, I had this natural way of engaging with people, a natural way of connecting with people, having the crack, and then also being able to I think I had a lot of compassion because of my own, where I'd come from, like, you know what I mean? And just when I went into the youth club in Coolock or R10, I was met with compassion. Like, I mean, they were very open to me, and I wanted to kind of emulate that, like, you know what I mean, and kind of, and I met loads of people. I just one of these people that's just able to meet people and connect with people, and I have that energy about me, and it's very, be very connected with that energy. So, everywhere I go, I meet people, like, you know what I mean, and everywhere, I've often walked into a room and be chatting with somebody, and somebody say to me, how do you know Mark O'Brien? And I'd be like, oh, it's that kind of thing, like, and I just be very, very open and very, and then, so.
Yeah, and Sparky, can we tell us that, I mean, that must, kind of going forward to come back again, but that also, it's very hard sometimes to protect yourself within that, and I mean, kind of from an energy point of view, kind of you can find yourself running dry. How do you kind of manage to maintain your kind of your own space within all that?
So I accepted at a very young age that I wasn't the same as anybody. That I wasn't. That I was. I actually at the time I said I was mad, like, and so when you accept that, I don't know. I couldn't answer you that. I couldn't tell you the answer to it, but I know that I do it, and I know that I do. Like, I live in Poppintree. The estate I live in is fairly quiet, and I kind of enjoy that space. I do listen to a lot of music, and I do connect to it. Like, I I've dogs here, like I rescue dogs, and so I make sure that they get walked every day, so I get exercise every day and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think I keep a boundary, but I think it's in my head. I think it's in my spirit. I don't think it's a physical kind of thing, you know. And I think it's very, very difficult for people to understand that when they see how I operate, because I would be very, you know, I would kind of keep. There would be a part of me that I keep for myself, you know.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's hard to explain, but it's definitely there. It's definitely worked, because I've seen people getting burnt out. And I suppose I realize my limitations. You know, when you understand powerlessness, and you understand powerlessness, you know, in the world, you there's a great freedom in that. Like, you know what I mean? So you understand, I can deal with what's coming at me today, you know, and I can work with that, and but I'm powerless. You know what I mean? You know, I'm powerless. You know, to people, places, and things. Like, you know what I mean? So that in itself then just helps me to kind of deal with the here and now, and I'd be very like that. You know what I mean? And some people might call that chaos, but I think, you know, something happens, and it's grand. It's grand. You know what I mean? So.
And I suppose there's a couple of things. I mean, I'm kind of interested in I'm delighted I found out where your name came from, but also the Ballymun thing, Sparky. Like, was there a certain draw? Like, what happened? You know, why, or was it the individual young people you were dealing with? Like, what? Like, that's whatever, 25, 30 years ago now. So what?
Yeah, so it just happened by accident. Like, you know what I mean? I met Hugo Bourne, and I met Father Sean Holloway, and all these people, and it just connected. Like, you know, it was meant to be, and it connected. And then, like, there was people like JD. You know, like JD was a young person. So for anybody who doesn't know, JD was an artist called John Duffy, who sadly passed away 5 or 6 years ago. Who was a really, really good friend of mine, and he was a big. It was an artist, like, you know what I mean? And when JD came, he was interested in photography, you know, and we ran a photography class in the youth project, and it was him and another young woman who did a lot of photography, and so then he disappeared. You know, when that course finished or whatever, he disappeared. And then I met him one day, and he had long hair and a combat jacket on. He was like, "I want to come up and teach art up in the youth club," and I would just have went, "Yeah," you know what I mean? And even though he was one of the young people who was drinking cans of cider at the back of the church, I would have just said, "Yeah, why not?" You know what I mean? And that's the way I would have operated. So he came up and he was teaching art to the kids, and then he became a youth worker. He got into it then, and he became a youth worker, and a very, very good youth worker, a very compassionate youth worker, you know? So I would have connected with the likes. So you're talking about JD. So there's the names: JD, Dean Scurry. You know, there would have been lots of different people that I would have connected with. Maria Place, you know what I mean? We would have met Maria Place on the journey, you know what I mean? And like myself and Maria then got involved in a housing cooperative, and that's the house I'm living in now, and that's 20 years ago. And so there would have been just lots of different stuff like that, like, you know what I mean? So it all happened, but it was kind of like it was meant to be, you know what I mean? So there was no plan, there was no kind of, I want to go there and do this because of that. It wasn't really. It was, I went up to see him, her, and then met them, and then this happened, and then so it all just it was just a mishmash of things. But I was always about being open to things and being open to situations, being open to and when access, like I remember. So when the shopping centre, which is still standing there, there's a unit in there that was called Perry's, and they opened that up and they asked people what do they want in their art centre. So Maria was there, we were there, and I'll tell you a funny story. So it's an old shopping centre, it's an old shopping unit, right? And myself, another guy was standing there, and we were saying to people when they're coming in, what would you like in your art centre? You know what I mean? So some people coming in and saying, we want pantos, you know what I mean? We want a place for bands to rehearse, you know. So this woman came in anyhow, and she was pushing the shopping trolley up, and I said to her, "What would you like in your art centre?" She said, "Iceland." We were like, "Sorry." So she thought, what would you, Iceland? We were like, no, in your arts. And then we just had to go. But it was very funny because it was something that kind of was a joke that ran through the whole thing, you know. But out of that came Axis, you know, and Axis was imagined and it was made. So what happened when Axis was built, I mean, I don't know whether you were there when the tower block was right beside it, you know.
Yeah.
So we had the tower block, and then wrapping around it was Axis, and it was very hard to get people even from Ballymun into it because it just didn't. People didn't feel like that this was ours, like, you know what I mean. It was like, you know, because there was still those boundaries. Well, that's their tower block, and you don't go around there and all that kind of stuff. So we were trying to get me and Dean were trying to get people to come up and play. So we asked Glenn Hansard would he come up and do a gig, and he did a gig. So JD's son Sean got sick. He was very young and he had cancer and he sadly passed away. But we did a gig for Sean, like, you know, and for the family. And Glenn Hansard played it, and Damien Dempsey played it as well, like, you know what I mean. So we had a gig in there, and then Damo came, and Damo says and has said it internationally that when he say to him, "What's your favorite venue in the world?" he always says the Axis.
Yeah.
And that's amazing, like, you know what I mean. And I feel part of that, like, you know what I mean, that he feels that room is. I remember seeing him once on his own with a guitar, you know, in the Axis, and Colin Querney was there. And Colin said, "That's the best I've ever seen Damo," you know.
Yeah.
And it was true, like, you know, I mean, it was just him. Oh man, what was it like? What was it like, you know? Yeah. And
but I think Sparky, I think that's where, you know, I think an awful lot of people kind of ask me about here and Axis and what makes it special, and I keep saying to them, it's what happened before it was open, and the reason that it's here. So it's kind of, in a way, it's the simplest thing in the world to follow on with an ethos that was kind of built very, very early. And it's less about the bricks and mortar, but more about the attitude. Do you know what I mean? And more about that kind of openness. And I think going back to what you were saying, though, about, say, your parents and that kind of compassion and social justice, I mean, I think that really, really pervades this whole community. And it's really kind of not spoken about enough. And I'm using kind of politics in a small p now, but like the sense of that, what happens in Ireland always happens here, kind of at a higher volume or higher kind of scene. So sometimes, but beneath all that mixture of compassion and activism, and I mean sometimes with a dig, you know, is an extraordinarily powerful place. And I think that's an awful lot that comes from, like, when I came out here in whatever 2004, like to work. I've been here many times before that, but it was like, I met 120 community groups in the first 6 months of kind of being
yeah. That's the way it was. Like in the flats and all, like there was just. I remember that there was like we had 96 community groups counted, and we didn't have them all. Like, you know what I mean. So you're right. There was a blanket of community groups, and what happened then was that the Regeneration came in, right, and I was for the Regeneration because the flats were defunct, like, you know what I mean? And I mean, you'll have all, you know, there's lots of people say, "Oh, bring back the flats," and grand, like, you know what I mean? But I lived in the flats, I squatted in the flats, and then I lived in a granny flat actually for 6 years, right? Which was basically a room the size of this room here. And it was good times, like, you know what I mean? But so when the Regeneration came in, there didn't seem to be a Ballymun voice for Ballymun, you know? So I was saying, we need to get somebody elected, and I think we tried to get Kathleen Maher elected at one stage as a community candidate. And so I decided to put myself forward, you know what I mean? And I met Daithí Doolan one day, and I was saying to Daithí about it. Daithí had worked in Ballymun, and I met him at a demo gig actually out in the Festival of Cultures out in Dunleary, and I was like, we need to get a Ballymun candidate, you know what I mean? Somebody that's from Ballymun, that's going to give a voice to Ballymun. And he said to me, "That's you, Sparky," you know? So I took it on. And I went and I joined Sinn Féin, and I became a Sinn Féin councillor. I got elected. And it was an amazing feat, like, you know. But what happened then was, you know, after that big campaign, you go into boring old politics. You know, you go into the Dublin City Council, and you're at a meeting, and it's this. You know, it was just like, get me out of here. Like, it was absolutely, just wasn't wasn't for me. And then we got a lot done. You know, we got a lot done. The regeneration happened, and you know, there's been lots said about the regeneration, that, you know, how bad it was. I actually think it's done an awful lot of good. And if you want to PM me, and we'll sit down and have a coffee about this, anybody, because I actually think that because what happened was 98% of people who were who were asked what they wanted in a regeneration of Ballymun was 98% of people said, I want a house, right? And then there was others that wanted apartments and all that kind of stuff. I wanted to build my own house, and that's how we ended up at the co-op here. So, so I think, you know, the people spoke, and I think, you know, it's a pity that it was never finished. I thought just before the COVID thing that we were going to get into a time in Ballymun where the regeneration would be finished, and it would kind of solve some of the homeless crisis, because we would build houses. And but I think with this COVID thing, I'm not sure what way the world economy is going to go, you know. But look, you know, we'll take it as it comes. But I do think that regeneration was a success in some ways. But I mean, I'm sure there's lots of people would disagree with that. But that's okay. I'm open to discussion. But so I get out of politics then and kind of got stuck back into the youth work, you know, and really, really got stuck into it. And around that time, I met the anarchists in Shamrock Spray, right? And I started getting back into fixing bicycles and making tall bikes and doing all that kind of stuff. And that was a great time, you know. So, but so then again, like there's another group of people, there's another group of things, you know, that I got involved with. And then, so I'm trying to think now what I've been into recently, like, you know.
Let me stop you for a second. Just in relation to your kind of, you know, working with youth particularly, but around that aspect of, because from knowing you, like, you kind of, in a way, it's interesting you describe that kind of guy with the hair back 15, 16. I don't think you've lost that energy of kind of of kind of searching. Do you know what I mean? Of that kind of not landing anywhere. And I think that's a space that's very exciting. And I think it's very open to kind of anarchy space, or that chaos space. People realize that.
Yeah, no, that is, you're right, and you said it well there, but not landing anywhere, because I'm still like that. Like, I mean, I'm still searching. I'm still, you know, I give up the gargle about 6 months ago, you know, and I was just bored out of my mind, and I said to somebody, what am I going to do, you know? Yeah. And I'm sure there could have been loads of things I could have done community wise, but I was like, I said, what am I going to do? And he said, what was your hobby, you know, when you were a kid? Because he played hurling, like, you know, and he was back playing hurling as an adult. This 40-year-old guy playing hurling, you know. And I was like, I was into CB radios, and they were like, well, get back into that, right? So I went and bought a CB, and I set it up in the shed, and me and a mate of mine, we start getting into CB radios, and we met this whole community of people. Now, it's mainly men, there's no women on it, right? But it's mainly men who were at night time talking on CB radios, you know. So when the COVID thing came in, I bought 4 CB radios for 4 young guys in Ballymun to try and get them to kind of communicate in a different way, like, you know. And so I'm always trying to use the different things that I kind of fall into as a way of working with young people, like, you know what I mean. And I have an idea at the minute about murals, you know, about you know, because you're trying to think of things to do that doesn't involve lots of people being around together, like, you know what I mean. So I'd love to get involved in some murals in the area, and I think murals are a great way to kind of give a bit of hope to people and stuff, you know.
But back there to the Steve, because my uncle, Jesus, many years, say in the late 70s, he was a big Steve down in Offaly. He was a big CB radio fan. I remember sitting there in the back garden and he'd be talking to truckers all over the fucking world, you know. And I'd forgotten about that completely, actually. That You know, that's very pre-Instagram and pre-Snapchat way of social media.
It is, right, but it has made a resurgence, right? And there's things called PMRs, right? Personal mobile radio. So what I had when you were a kid was a walkie-talkie, right? So the frequencies start at, we say, 0, and they come right up into the hundreds. The frequencies do. So you would have the television frequencies, the radio, the FM 104s, and all that kind of stuff. They're all in the whole spectrum of frequencies. And then there's ham radio frequencies, and to get a ham license is like tough. It's a tough thing to do, you know. And so we operate on the legal bands, which are the 27 bands. But up in the 466, the 446 bands, which is when you buy walkie-talkies for your kids in Lidl, they're on a band. They have to be on a frequency. So those frequencies are free. You don't need to have a license to be on them. But they don't get you from here till across the road. So what's happened is that you can buy radios now that are they're half a watt output, but because they're on that band, it's a very, very clear band. So if you get line of sight on those radios, you can get out on them, right? So people are setting up what's called networks, PMR networks, right? So today I was talking to this guy in Bristol, right? And I wasn't talking to him on the PMR, but I was talking to him through Facebook. I joined the thing, and he added me, and he funnily enough said, "I've seen your Facebook page, and you look like an interesting guy," or something like that, right? And he turned out to be a harmonica player in a blues band, right? So I put him onto Column's band, the Square Pegs, right? And he was like, I won't tell you what he said because he was very funny, but he's a harmonica player in the blues band, and his name is not Don Baker, Dan Baker, right? So I just sending him Don Baker, so all kind of stuff. So there's people doing stuff at radio, they're building antennas and all that kind of stuff. And it's just a hobby to get people communicating. And I think a lot of the time we want to just communicate, you know what I mean? And arts is a way of communicating. Murals are a way of communicating. You know, festivals they're just a way of communicating, you know? And I think that's and during this time where we're kind of locked, you know, in, you know, a kind of lockdown, people aren't communicating, so they're looking for different ways to communicate, you know. Yeah. And I think there's been a huge, I think social media, like I must have seen 40 gigs in the last couple of weeks. Like, you know what I mean? I've seen Derry Farrell lady every Sunday, Ian Prowse from Liverpool. I've seen Damo. Actually, I encouraged Damo. I said to Damo when he couldn't do the gig in London, I says, why not do a gig from the studio? And he did it. He did it on Instagram or Facebook. And I've seen we were both at the same gig. Yeah. But you were in your house and I was in my house. Glenn Hanson, what a gig. Eddie Vedder, my God, what an amazing gig. So it has adapted. I never seen Lisa's play, Lisa Watch's play. Yeah. I never seen it because I just kept, it was always on. I couldn't get up to it. And I seen it here, and it's a great play. You know what I mean? It's a great play. We should be doing more of that kind of stuff over this time to kind of, but yeah. So I think we are connecting, and I think we're lost a bit. You know, I think we got a bit lost, but I think we're okay now. We're starting to kind of find ourselves again. You know, we're starting to communicate.
I could go back there because I think there's something that you said there that kind of, there's a couple of things throughout this that kind of best describes, say, you and great youth work, and the kind of, I think Ballymun's blessed with. I was on the Tanya Ray on one of these the other day, and kind of, you know, the amount of people that are kind of involved in youth work and community work in general. But what goes across, and to me what makes it really click, is what you said there about, you know, measurements and kind of the impossibility of giving on the spot measurements, and it is really kind of a generational measurement, but also the fact of trust, and also the fact of you being who you are in that scenario, rather than putting on your youth work hat, that like it's kind of that you are presenting yourself as someone who's trustworthy. Do you know what I mean? Who kind of is not, it's not about an organization, it's Sparky. And I think that's, you know, so many people I know in this area that have that kind of, you know, you could be talking to the guys, you say, the back of the school drinking the cans, or you can be talking to the woman in the shop, whatever it is. But that's me.
That's me. Yeah. That is me. And Dean's the same. Dean is the same. Like, you know what I mean? Like Dean you can be walking down the street with Dean, and he'll include somebody who's homeless, and he'll include somebody from Africa. You know, he's just, and you know, it's just something that we have. We're just lucky. It's luck. You know, it's my father. As I said, he was a trade union man. He was very, very open minded, and you know, he would, you know, my dad went on holidays to Mauritius and said to some guy, "If you're ever in Ireland," you know, and that guy, like, he did. He turned up. He turned up. He's a big friend of the family. He's a great guy. And my dad has been back to Mauritius with them. But that's the kind of people we are, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
but
you know, like,
I think the fixer thing, Sparky, though, is interesting because, like, you know, the music thing has stuck with you, and you know, a lot of your close friends are, you know, at very different levels, from high up to low down or whatever, you know, in that industry. But also the fact that there's a trust there. Like, you're not, you know, it's like, you know, people let you into their confidences, and I don't necessarily tell you any secrets, but like trust you within spaces that, because they know that you don't want anything. And I think that's a huge.
yeah.
You know, you're not looking for anything, and we've often talked about then people looking to you because they want something, you know, and that kind of
probably. Well, and I think, I don't know, like, I remember myself and Dino went into Damien Dempsey in the Isaac boat, and we asked him to come and play in the Access, you know, and he said, yeah, but then we started talking about sea swimming, you know, and he says, if you're ever going sea swimming, give us a shout. So he gave me his home number, like, you know, and I rang the house and I said to him, we're going swimming today, do you want me to pick you up? And I picked him up in Donaghmede with a big gang of young people in the back of a minibus, and we went swimming, and that's always been the connection. And then we just built up a friendship from there, you know. And through that friendship, I've met lots of people, and but I would have known a lot of those people through Colm, you know what I mean? Because I met Colm through his dad, and his dad was involved in an art centre in Coolock, and I met Colm, and then myself and Colm became friends, and we worked together. And again, one of those people that has compassion and has, you know, an interest in people, and then, you know, he should really be in U2 or something like that.
Yeah.
But he's not. He works in a community organisation, you know, fighting wars and all that. And that's brilliant, because that's who he is, like, you know what I mean? And so it's just, it's like, this is probably the first time I've thought about that, like, you know what I mean? And, you know, I just think I'm not looking for anything. If I'm looking for something, it's about youth work or something like that. You know, if I'm saying to people, would you jump on board with this? You know, it would be about trying to get young people to experience something new or something like that. Like, you know what I mean?
Even more than that, Sparky, in a bizarre way, and this is a very not Irish thing in a way. If you're looking for something, you'll ask for it, rather than not asking for it for months, and then do you know what I mean? You'd be upfront about it. And I think that's kind of that's a real trait that I love about, you know, and I'm not generalizing here, but that's a trait I love about kind of working in this community, is that people are upfront. They kind of, even if it's a kind of hard conversation, if they have a problem with you or if they want something, they'll ask you. And
that's it. Yeah. And I think that's the problem is that they don't like no as an answer.
Well, there is that too. But, you know, it's kind of, I mean, I often say when I'm talking to kind of artists in general, kind of going, you know, the worst thing that can happen here is I'm going to say no. So just let's kind of, that's all that's going to happen. So, like, ask. And, you know, and I think that there's many different ways of kind of saying yes, though. I think you're talking about regeneration. You're talking about kind of, you know, communities that have had to grow from the roots up. I think expectations are kind of key, and not filling people with expectations as well. You know, like a good no is better sometimes than a not meant yes.
Yeah, but the other thing is about it. Like, I've often had an idea, or, you know, thought we should, you know, do something or whatever, and it grew into something else, you know. Yeah. And that's all right. Like, you know what I mean? That's you know, if you think about the film once, I remember Glenn making the film once, you know, and he was telling me about it, you know, and it was going to be this tiny little art film, like, you know what I mean? And I remember going to see it, and he asked me, what did you think about it? And I thought it was the only film that I seen about Dublin actually followed the proper routes. You know what I mean, in the car. Because in the Snapper, the car comes down O'Connell Street, and you're saying you can't do that. And he was laughing about that. But I do think what I was trying to say to him was, it's an honest film. It's an honest film about. And I thought, if you look at Once Now, like it was a huge film. It got Glenn and it got them an Oscar. It then grew into the Broadway thing, like, you know what I mean? And Phelan was involved in that and all, you know what I mean? And just it's just, but I don't think John ever thought that film, when he was making it, was going to become that, you know what I mean? And it's a pity in a sense that Sing Street didn't kind of have the same momentum, you know, because I thought the work that went into Sing Street was amazing, and the songs and Eamon's songs were unreal, like, you know what I mean, capturing the 80s and all that kind of stuff.
But it's funny, actually, that was just about to open on Broadway when this all happened. Sing Sing.
Oh, was it? Yeah.
Yeah, it was just literally, they were in previews, and it was just about to open. But come here to me, go back. I won't keep you much longer, Sparky, but I just wanted to talk to you about that word honesty, and I think that's kind of key to the work that you do. And I was wondering, is that, because obviously you work in kind of, situations with some young people that aren't kind of great, and I suppose, do you still get that buzz or that kick or that feeling of now still?
Yeah, I mean, so I mean, there's a great team. Like, I work in Poppintree Youth Project. We have a great team over there. Like, you know what I mean? And I mean, the issues in Ballymun haven't really changed, which is sad, really. Like, you know what I mean? So, so again, we have housing is an issue. Drugs, education, all that kind of stuff. And I think that so that can be kind of difficult. Like, you know what I mean? But I think with age comes wisdom, like, you know what I mean? And you kind of, what I would try and do is try and steer people towards something that you spot at a young age. Like, you know, if you see somebody that you think that might be interested in, mechanics or something like that, just try and steer them at a young age. If people are interested in the arts and stuff like that, is to steer them. I mean, I remember when I first came to Poppintree, there was a young woman who was really, I was saying, would be a great youth worker, and she is now a great youth worker. And I think if you can kind of steer people or help, or gently kind of suggest to people and stuff like that, I think that you will get great, great things will happen. Sadly, sometimes people have to go through huge trauma and huge situations and all that kind of stuff, and come out and recover, and then go into something. You know what I mean? Which I always think, is, okay, it happens. Like, you know what I mean? And it's probably meant to happen, but wouldn't it be great if you didn't have to do that, to kind of come out the other side? And no, I'm definitely, I love being a youth worker. I have to say, this time I was devastated when I was here, like, and not in contact with people. I was in a Snapchat group last night with a group of young people, and we were slagging each other, and it was just hilarious, like, and I was just thinking, this is what I miss, like, I miss the banter, I miss the crack, and but I also miss, them getting involved and stuff. Like, they were all keen to get involved in the Paddy's Day celebration down in the Axis, like, and it just didn't happen, So we just have to try and get. I mean, I haven't lost that buzz, but it's to try to get that buzz for what way we're going to be going forward, because this is going to change us. This COVID-19 is going to change us completely, and they're saying that it'll be years before it's gone, like, you know what I mean? So it's going to change us. I mean, I met my sister today down in Ballymun, and we were like, we didn't even do the foot kick thing. We just were like, how are you? And strange, just very, very strange, and she headed off to get a bus, and I was just like, see you, like, and you're kind of going, this is weird, like, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
so.
Come here, listen, I'll leave it at that. Sparky, thanks so much. You've kind of spoke brilliantly there. Thanks so much for taking part in this.
Thank you.